Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Midrune. Midrune is one of those decks that seems to be doing pretty okay in the current meta. Definitely wouldn't put it right up there at the top, but it seems to be doing reasonably well. Of course, I would recommend running 3 Abomination. I currently only have 2. I actually had to make 1 just for this video, as I only currently had 1. And I may decide to make another one in the future, but Abomination is a pretty decent card and pretty key to winning most of your matches. And in that case, I did just add an extra Peacemaker. There was only 1 in this deck. It works well as a spell for just drawing a card and does a pretty good job at that for its cost, and it gives you a potential body if you need it, because you don't have too many followers in this deck to begin with. But of course the key is the Abyss Summoner, with its effect to get the Eldritch Demon for 4 Storm, 6 with an Evo, and it gives you the 6/6 body, which is nice. Everything else runs pretty stock standard when it comes to rune decks overall. I mean, most of you guys have probably seen these cards in Earthright or spell variants, so most of the cards are pretty known. The only real different one, like I just pointed out, Grand Spire, that's not ran in too many variants of decks. Outside of that though, I think pretty much everything else is pretty common. If you are a newer player, I recommend checking out some other rune videos. This probably isn't the deck for you, as it's definitely a different deck, honestly. I haven't found this deck to be super easy to play, but at the same time I haven't found it super hard. I found it kind of in the middle when it came to difficulty, and honestly that's where you kind of want a deck to sit. So definitely not a bad deck overall, but we're going to get right into it and check it out. And our first matchup is going to be against Sword.
Wanna play with Cagliostro?
To arms! There's a battle underway!
Sword is just one of those classes at the moment that still does really well in the rotation format, so it really makes this deck go for it, I guess. That's all I could say. But starting out with the Witch's Cauldron is always a nice way to go. It does give you that early pressure, and Sword not playing anything definitely helps us out. Do decide to go Witch of Foresight, just trying to get more cards into our hand and lower our count. Getting it down to 20 as quick as possible is really what you want to do. And our opponent not really doing anything too substantial in the early game here, just kind of throwing a couple of bodies down. And we did manage to get out our really sweet 6/6 there. Now it's just a matter of building up our hand. So I do decide to take the draw there and set up another Witch's Cauldron, and why not play the Mysterian Knowledge for good measure. It does let us to start developing. Of course, getting your draws are the most important thing. I didn't start out with the best hand when it comes to draws for this match, but overall it's not the worst either. And we can quite comfortably remove this board and draw a bunch of cards. So I mean, why not? Triple Cagliostro, not the best thing to have right now. But I mean, since they're going for Lancer, it's really not a big issue. We're going to be able to be pretty comfortable with this hand. We're going to be able to draw a card, stack our hand up a little bit, remove this 5/5, and potentially develop further. So I played the extra Cagliostro just so I had something on board, and so next turn I have the potential to play something better. And it looks like that's going to work out in my favor a little bit. I mean, it did draw their attack away from my 6/6. And we managed to reach 9, which does give us the activation on the Abomination. I could have evoed the Abomination myself, although I really wanted the removal effect. And now it's just a matter of going face. I think maybe a potential 1 Silverblade Golem could be good, because you do run a lot of Earth Sigils. So using that as potential reach could be good. Definitely might consider putting that in this kind of deck. So our opponent again, just kind of filling things out. Not really an issue for us. Master Mage does a good job at cleaning things up. I could have went for lethal there, I believe, if I had ever used Ars Mungus and just went face, so I did actually miss lethal for that point, but with our current health total and the way the game is going, it really wasn't going to be a big issue. Plus, we also drew Master Mage on top of that, so really it probably wasn't going to matter against Sword anyway. At that point, we'd pretty much secured the game. And our next matchup is actually a Rune matchup. So Rune now has a few variants that you've got to watch out for in rotation, of course. So you've got straight up Earth Sigils, you've now got this Mid Rune, and you've also got Chimera Rune. Of course, Chimera Rune does have a few variations on top of itself. There is also Doom Rune, which I may cover in a future video, but it is honestly not one of the most popular decks, but it is a fun one to play. So this deck does great when you start off with a turn 1 play, and most of the time you will have one, as you are running a fair few 1-drops to take advantage of. And being able to abuse things like Starseer's Telescope and Witch's Cauldron for the double draw is always a nice way to build up your board. But again, you're mainly just looking to draw as many cards as possible, and I think this matchup does a really good job at showing that. Our last matchup wasn't quite as good, but we still managed to use our board control to its fullest. Whereas in this matchup, we're more focused on just purely pulling cards from our deck. Our opponent going for the Mysterious Knowledge and Mysterious Missile. Not really an issue. We're able to max out our hand with Concentration, sorry. For some reason I still think it's always Consecration, which is, I'm pretty sure, a completely separate card, but that's not the point. We get this down, we get the 6 damage, exactly what we wanted. Not really an issue. It's going to force them to have to remove this now. And considering how the Rune player had been playing, I wasn't too worried about using it as a board clear. Mainly just getting that free Evo was going to be our biggest advantage. And of course, Grand Spire, great little card. I actually quite enjoy it. I was surprised, it's not a card I expected to enjoy, but it's one that I did enjoy nonetheless. And now we're just kind of setting up our board. I mean, why not? We've got a decent sigil set up there. Did force them to use something, which is always good. We're 23 cards, so we only need to remove 3 more before these Abyss Summoners are playable, which we can do thanks to these spells, but it does mean I'm not going to be playing out my Levi this turn. Spheric Blade, not bad when they're wasting 6 to remove it. They could have probably done better. They were definitely looking to charge things up and just couldn't quite get there, which definitely helped us out. But that is how Rune plays out with these kind of matchups. And considering so far mostly I've seen Rune and Sword on ladder, both these do fairly well at showing them off for rotation format, as the only other deck is Puppet Portal, and that is a fairly hard one overall, but this deck can still do pretty well because it ends games usually slightly earlier than Puppet can, especially if you manage to go first. So as you can see, these Abyss Summoners really do a lot of work, both drawing damage away from them and getting storm damage in. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I've actually quite enjoyed playing this deck, and I think it's one I'll continue to play for a bit, as it is quite a nice deck to play out, and does a pretty decent job. It's been doing well, I believe, in tournaments. At least that's where I pulled the original deck list from, was just a tournament winning deck. And hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. As I mentioned, hit the like button, subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.